In 1970, Dodge unleashed the Dodge Challenger to the public. In 1974, it was canceled. Now, 50 years later, the Challenger is back with a vengeance and people can't get enough of him. So, step into the lounge and let's talk about what happened to the Dodge Challenger. I gotta admit, I really wasn't interested in doing anything on the Dodge Challenger. Well, at least not now. I was busy working on my Shelby stuff. But something about the Dodge Challenger just caught my attention because it's all over YouTube. You see the Dodge Challenger everywhere, especially the Hellcat and the Demon. And so I decided to do a little research on the Dodge Challenger. And to be honest, after I got done with my research, I really like this car. So we're going to step into the lounge and we're going to talk about what happened to the Dodge Challenger.
Shut up and sit down.
It's 2020, and the Dodge Challenger is celebrating 50 years. Well, not exactly 50 years of continuous production, but 50 years ago, the first Dodge Challenger rolled off the production line in 1970. In 1975, it disappeared into oblivion, made a brief showing in the late 1970s and early 80s. Then, in 2008, it reappeared on the scene. It received rave reviews for its styling and somewhat decent performance, but it simply never dominated among pony cars at that time. People seemed to prefer the Mustang or Camaro first, and then the Challenger always seemed to be a distant third. But that was 2008. At the time of this video, it's early 2020, and the Dodge Challenger is no longer bringing up the rear. It seems that the Challenger is making its own path. Growing up in the 1970s, I'm no stranger to the original Dodge Challenger. I've seen my share on the streets, on the track, and at the movies. It's a pony car that came late to the game and was taken out early by the gas crunch of the 1970s, but left quite a legacy before the last model rolled off the assembly line in 1974. 46 years later, in 2020, we have a new Challenger, so to speak. But does it live up to the legacy its predecessor left? Is it worthy of the name Challenger? Before we decide that, let's take a look back to where it all began. Now, the first car to bear the Challenger name was the 1959 Coronet Silver Challenger, a special edition one-year model only that was introduced as a package deal for new buyers. Other than the name, it shares nothing with any of the Dodge Challengers as we know them. I only included this car in the video so no one would say in the comment section that I missed it. So skip forward to the mid-1960s. Plymouth released their redesigned Barracuda 2 weeks before Ford, making it technically the first pony car. But when Ford introduced their new Mustang to the world, it caused a frenzy. And because it looks so much better than the Valiant-based Plymouth, not to mention it's named after a horse, it pretty much coined the name pony car, which worked much better for the Ford than the Plymouth. Then, in 1967, Chevrolet hit the scene with a car of their own, codenamed Panther, that ended up being the Camaro, and the pony car wars were officially underway. However, the Chrysler Corporation was lagging behind. Plymouth had their Barracuda, and it wasn't small like a pony car, nor was it sporty looking like the Camaro or Mustang. Anything Dodge had to offer was just way too big. They had to get into the mix of things. To make matters worse, the gap between them and the competition would only widen each year as the engine sizes would only get bigger. By 1969, the pony car market was flooded with contenders. Of course, there was the Mustang and Camaro, but also added to the lineup were the Mercury Cougar, Pontiac Firebird, and the AMC Javelin, just to name a few. Chrysler decided to take steps to enter the pony car fray and began a total redesign of the Plymouth Barracuda and added the Challenger to the lineup for Dodge. The main competition for the Challenger would be the Mercury Cougar and the Pontiac Firebird. These two models were upscale versions of the Ford Mustang and the Chevy Camaro, respectively. To make the Challenger a little more luxurious, they improved the interior space by stretching the wheelbase to 110 inches, 2 inches longer than the Barracuda. The other cars were built to run small blocks as well as big blocks, and the engineers didn't want to make the Challenger too large, defeating their goal of making it a competitive pony car. After a few tries, they were finally able to agree on a design that wasn't too large, but could accept a 426 Hemi or 440 big block if needed. The final chassis design would end up becoming the E-Body. The new Challenger design featured an aggressive look with 4 headlights and a recessed grille, the standard long-nose short deck layout, and a full-width taillight out rear. Inside was a sporty interior that featured optional items like an overhead console, cruise control, and power windows, to name a few things. Overall, it was a very well-equipped car that even benefited from Dodge's signature paint colors like Panther Pink, Hemi Orange, and Plum Crazy. The Challenger would come in 2 body styles, hardtop coupe and convertible, with 4 trim levels: the base, SE, RT, and TA. With these 4 trim levels came no less than 11 engine choices: the 198 cubic inch slant 6 at 101 horsepower, a 225 cubic inch slant 6 at 145 horsepower, a 318 cubic inch V8 at 230 horsepower, a 340 V8 at 275 horsepower, a special 340 for the TA only at 290 horsepower, a 383 V8 at 290 horsepower, 330 horsepower, or 335 horsepower, a 426 cubic inch Hemi V8 at 425 horsepower, and the 440 cubic inch V8 at 375 horsepower or 390 horsepower. Transmission choices range from a TorqueFlite 3-speed automatic to a 3-speed manual, finishing up with a 4-speed manual with an optional pistol grip shifter. A various array of stylish hubcaps on 14-inch steel wheels were available, while models equipped with the Magnum engine or the 290 horsepower 340 received a choice from 2 15-inch styled steel wheels. Any option could be had in either coupe or convertible form, except for the TA, which was a coupe only. The base model made a nice entry-level car for enthusiasts, while the SE model was good for cruising in style and luxury. The RT, which stood for Road Track, was the Challenger's performance offering, utilizing a wide range of engine choices from the 383 to the 426 Hemi and the 440. The RT had a variety of options that included either a twin scoop hood or a shaker hood. The TA was Dodge's homologation effort to make the Challenger legal for Trans Am racing, and it only came with a 290 horsepower 340 and 4-speed manual. This model would compete directly against the Mustang Boss 302, Chevy Camaro Z28, Plymouth AAR Cuda, and the AMC AMX. On the track, Dodge campaigned 2 TA Challengers in the Trans Am series. The 77 car was piloted by driver Sam Posey, and the 76 car was piloted by Tony Adamowicz. While they didn't win the championship, Posey placed 4th overall in the standings, which wasn't bad at all. The TA stood apart from the other Challengers. It came with a black fiberglass hood with a snorkel hood scoop. Down the side was a black TA stripe, and the car sported a split front spoiler and rear wing. Under the hood was Dodge's venerable 340 with 6-pack carburation. Power was fed through a 4-speed manual to a Dana rear end, and the exhaust was unlike anything you'd see on the street since the 65 GT350, as it exited to the side in front of the rear wheel, thanks to special reverse flow mufflers. Dodge also backed an NHRA Pro Stock team as well. Headed up by Dodge legend Dandy Dick Landy, he campaigned the Challenger through the 1971 season until he left NHRA due to extensive rule changes that many felt favored Ford-powered vehicles. It was a shame, too. The 426 Hemi Elephant motor under the hood of a Dodge Challenger was a force to be reckoned with. Getting back to the design phase, it was the designer's projection that they were going to sell a total of 200,000 units between the Challenger and Barracuda during the first year. But unfortunately, they could barely muster a few shy of 77,000 for the Challenger and almost 50,000 for the Barracuda in 1970. In comparison, the 1967 model Camaro topped 160,000 by itself, and the 65 Mustang topped them both with 559,000 plus its first year. So needless to say, the first year run was a disappointment. 1971 saw a few changes. The rear taillights were split into two separate taillights, and the front was given a new twin inlet grille. The engine options remained the same with a few minor changes. The 444 barrel was dropped, and a few of the horsepower ratings were lowered slightly. The TA option was dropped, as well as the 290 horsepower 346 pack. The RT option for the convertible was also dropped. It didn't help much as production was a little over 23,000 units for 1971. However, Dodge didn't give up. But unfortunately, we all know the story. And the story of the Challenger is just like the rest. For 1972, Dodge gave the Challenger a facelift, giving it a more aggressive-looking grille that earned the nickname Sad Mouth. The RT option was dropped in favor of the Rally option, whose only engine offering was the 340. That's because all of the big block engines were dropped, including the 426 Hemi. The only other two engine choices were the 225 horsepower Slant 6 and the 318. Production for 1972 was a little over 22,000 units. For 1973, the Challenger received bumper guards for the front and rear. The Slant 6 was dropped, leaving the 318 as the base engine, and the 340 as the performance engine. Everything else remained the same. Production for 1973 was 32,596 units. For 1974, it was obvious that the Challenger was at the end of the road. The 318 remained the base engine, and the 340 was dropped in favor of the 360. Sales were horrible, and Dodge canceled the Challenger at the end of the 74 production run with a little more than 16,000 units built. The Challenger wasn't a bad car, but Dodge introduced the Challenger way past the prime of the pony car and muscle car era. Between smog regulations and fuel shortages, it seemed that the Challenger was doomed from the start. As a matter of fact, 1974 pretty much spelled the end of the era for muscle cars and pony cars as a whole. If the car models weren't canceled like the Challenger, they were choked out with anemic, weak V8s that couldn't even break 100 horsepower, or downsized to accommodate four-cylinder engines. Either way, the day of the rumbly V8 were gone for now. Look, we all know what came next. And let's be honest, this iteration of the Challenger did nothing to influence the modern Challenger of today, save for keeping the brand name alive. But how did it come to be? You see, back in the early 1970s, Mitsubishi sold 15% of their stock to Chrysler in order to help export product to the United States. This led to the introduction of the Dodge Colt in 1971, which began the influx of subcompact cars to help combat the fuel shortage. By 1978, Chrysler rebadged Mitsubishi's Galant and began to sell the same vehicle here in America under the name of the Plymouth Sapporo and, you guessed it, the Dodge Challenger. Powered by either 1.6-liter four-cylinder or optional 2.6-liter four-cylinder that cranked out 77 and 105 horsepower respectively. This small engine wonder was produced from 1978 to 1983. You know, it's funny how trends or something that was popular back in the day can make a comeback. From fashion to movie remakes, nothing ever dies. It just comes back again in 30 years. The same can be said for car designs. Actually, when it comes to car designs, it seems that they started to lose their uniqueness, that look that would make it stand out. They all began to look, well, aged. The cars back in the day may not have had much technology or sophistication, or even the best in safety equipment, but what they lacked in those departments, they made up for with style. Fortunately, the auto manufacturers realized that the cars they were building were looking pretty much the same and began to experiment by building concepts that were modern with a retro look. Interestingly enough, Chrysler built some of the most iconic retro concepts, like the Chrysler Atlantic and the Plymouth Prowler. Soon after that, we began to see them on the streets. Some of the most notable were Ford's Thunderbird that ran from 2002 to 2005, And thanks to cars like the Dodge Viper RT10, Chrysler began to bring cars like the Plymouth Prowler to production. In the beginning, they were more of a novelty. They were cute cars that were a throwback to the past. But then something happened. Ford released the 2004 GT. Based on the Mark I GT40 from the 1960s, the modern GT was a menacing mechanical work of art that not only looked fast, it was fast. Thanks to the 550 horse supercharged 5.4-liter V8 mounted amidships. The new GT was the perfect balance of modern performance wrapped up in a stylish yet functional package that wasn't a copy of the original, but more of an extension. The following year, Ford hit us with a double whammy with its retro-designed Ford Mustang. This was one of the most popular vehicles on the planet, and this new design just gave it a shot in the arm of super serum, and the Mustang hasn't looked back since. With the reintroduction of the Dodge Charger a year prior, although not built as a retro vehicle, it managed to stir up thoughts of nostalgia enough to warrant a new car that stirred up memories of the muscle car era, like the Challenger. Not to mention, Dodge wasn't dumb. They missed the boat back in 1970, but they weren't going to drop the ball this time. The retro cars were quickly rising in popularity, and this time, Dodge was riding the wave. In 2006, they introduced the Dodge Challenger concept. Built by metal crafters, the carbon fiber bodied Challenger concept was spot on. The body lines were reminiscent of the original, from the quad lights in the front to the full-width taillight in the rear. The Hemi-Orange concept boasted a pair of exposed carbon fiber stripes on the hood and trunk, and the belt line mimicked that of the original so well that it was almost like looking at a 1970 model, but updated. And rightfully so, as the design team had a 1970 Challenger at their disposal during the design process. What was the response of the consumers? They loved it and wanted more. So the engineers at Chrysler went to work to develop the car for production. Now remember, at this time, Chrysler was owned by Daimler-Benz, as in Mercedes-Benz. So this new chassis took a lot of cues from the 1996 to 2002 Mercedes E-Class. To be clear, they didn't take old leftover E-Class platforms and slap them under new Challenger bodies. What most likely happened is that the engineers looked at what was available and cost-effective and built a new platform to fit their needs based on something existing. What they came up with was a platform that was front-engine, rear-drive, and featured a 5-link independent rear suspension that was already based on a proven design. That provided a sound foundation. Now, this new chassis was originally developed for the Charger, 300, and Magnum first, since they came out first. But with some minor tweaks and shortening up, the Dodge Challenger chassis was born. Now let's segue for a second. Using an existing platform isn't new. Take a look at Ford's Fox platform, for instance. Not only did it provide a foundation for the extremely popular Mustang that ran from 1978 to 1993, but it was also the base for cars like the Mercury Capri, the Ford Thunderbird and Cougar, Fairmont, Zephyr, LTD, and of course the Lincoln Mark VII. But that wasn't the end of the platform. When Ford redesigned the Mustang in 1994, they developed the SN95 chassis from the existing Fox platform. So it's basically a Fox platform with new suspension, which is why it's so easy to swap so many suspension components from the SN95 to the Fox Mustang. When you look at it, Ford's Fox platform was a staple for Ford for over 25 years. The Chevy Corvette's Y platform from 1984 to 2019 is the same thing. If you really want to get technical, you could spot similarities in the suspension design all the way back to the 1963 Corvette. So, getting back to the Challenger, the production design was pretty close to the concept vehicle. The lines were a little sharper, but overall, retained pretty much the same retro flavor of the concept. The front end of the car featured the quad headlight look, but it's actually two headlights with two large turn signals, which looks a little off, but that's just a matter of personal preference. Out back was the full-width single taillight and incorporated a small lip spoiler on the trunk lip for the SRT-8 models. It definitely looked the part of a Dodge Challenger. The 2008 model came out with guns blazing, as the only model available was the SRT-8 model. With the crowning jewel of the SRT-8 being the engine, already known to the world as powering the Charger SRT-8, the 6.1-liter Gen 3 Hemi could crank out a very respectable 425 horsepower, backed by a 5-speed automatic transmission. The car rode on a 4-wheel independent suspension that loosely shared design with the Mercedes E-Class. It never had a solid rear axle. The interior was still attractive and functioning with 4 analog gauges, chrome trim controls, and leather interior with bucket seats. It was reminiscent of the original, but very modern. Also, each Challenger produced comes with Easter eggs throughout the vehicle, but one in particular is on the windshield. It's a silhouette of the Dodge Challenger. Dodge produced a total of 6,462 SRT-8 Challengers for the United States, 100 SRT-8 Challengers for Mexico, and 700 SRT-8 500 Challengers produced exclusively for Canada, making a grand total of 7,262 units. They were available in either Hemi Orange, Brilliant Black, or Bright Silver. Performance-wise, the SRT-8 Challenger delivered the goods, but to be honest, it was only slightly faster than a stock Mustang GT at the time, and there was no way it was going to catch a 2008 GT 500 as it boasted 500 horsepower and was about 200 pounds lighter. Still, overall, the SRT-8 Challenger was a success on the streets. For the 2009 model year, Dodge released the complete Challenger line to the public with 3 trim levels. First was the entry-level SE model. It came equipped with a 3.5-liter V6 rated at 250 horsepower. Next in line was the RT that was powered by Dodge's brand new 5.7-liter Hemi. It produced 372 horsepower backed by the 5-speed automatic transmission and 376 horsepower backed by the 6-speed manual. Both trim levels had a similar look with only minor changes to differentiate them from each other. That way, an entry-level SE model could look just as fast as an RT. At the top of the performance chain was the SRT-8 with a 425 horsepower 6.1-liter Hemi under the hood. The SRT-8 was virtually a carryover from the 2008 model with the addition of a 6-speed manual transmission. One additional model became available for 2009, and that was the Drag Pack. This special edition was built in a direct competition to Ford's factory drag car, the Cobra Jet Mustang, that came out in 2008. Equipped with a supercharged 5.4-liter detuned GT500 engine, Ford built 50 of these monsters to terrorize the drag strips of America. So, in turn, Dodge introduced their Challenger Drag Pack. This mean Mopar was purpose-built specifically for the drag strip. Weighing in at a svelte 3,200 pounds, 100 Drag Pack Challengers were produced. Of that number, 3 were equipped with the 5.9-liter Magnum Wedge engine. That's right, folks, not a new generation Hemi, but an old-school LA engine. 12 were equipped with the 5.7-liter Hemi, leaving the remaining 88 powered by the 6.1-liter Hemi. The transmission and drive shaft is owner-supplied, with power being transferred to the ground via solid axle. The purpose of the Drag Pack is to give drag racers a factory-built race car that's eligible for over 40 race classes, all for $39,999. It was a good first effort and a great foundation for even more to come. The 2010 model year brought little changes for the production cars. All the trim levels remained the same, but each level received minor tweaks, like automatic headlights for RT models and steering wheel audio controls. One new addition was a Super Track Pack. This option was aimed solely at the handling department. They included a 20mm stabilizer bar, larger than the standard 16mm bar, heavy-duty 4-wheel disc brakes, self-leveling shock absorbers, and 20x9 wheels with Goodyear supercar tires. With the success of the Drag Pack in 2009, Dodge refined the package to offer for 2010. The engine options were narrowed down to only the 6.1-liter Hemi, to a forged steel crankshaft and connecting rods, forged pistons, revised valve lift and hydraulic roller cams, and a modified high ram intake manifold. Transmission and drive shaft were again owner supplied, all to be had again for the bargain price of $39,999. 2011 was a pivotal year for styling. For 2011, that hideous Ram emblem was removed from the car entirely, especially from the front header panel. But I digress. The production line as a whole remained the same, with some improvement and changes. More notably, the front fascia was updated with a larger lower front grille opening for the RT and SRT8 models. Mechanically, the SC and Rally models received a new 3.6-liter Pentastar engine rated at 305 horsepower, while the SRT8's 6.1-liter Hemi was replaced with a new 6.4-liter Hemi, also known as 392, codenamed Apache, and was rated at 470 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque. The remainder of the changes are small and numerous, but all contribute to making the Challenger a nicer car to drive and really improve the reputation compared to the competition. Speaking of the competition, Dodge decided to change the game once again with the drag pack option. They didn't even offer a V8 for 2011. Instead, under the hood resided an 8.4-liter V10. This turnkey 512 cubic inch behemoth could crank out 600 horsepower and was built to compete in NHRA stock and super stock classes. Made it to a factory-supplied 2-speed automatic transmission, this would be the largest engine ever offered in the drag pack option. During its debut, it set several NHRA records. 2012 saw a few changes for the Challenger, but significant nonetheless. The base SE and Rally models were renamed SXT and SXT Plus respectively to remain consistent with the other Dodge brands. Also, the RT was given a Plus trim designation. Basically, the only difference between any trim level and the Plus designation is a few trim upgrades. The other change for 2012 was the addition of a 2-mode adaptive suspension for the SRT8 models. One new addition to the lineup, however, was the Yellow Jacket. It seems that Dodge has this thing for bugs that sting, like the Super Bee, Bumblebee stripes, and now the Yellow Jacket. It came from a special show car Dodge created back in 1970. They wanted to test the waters to see if there was any interest in a Corvette Challenger. Not a Corvette/Challenger, but a car to challenge the Corvette, which happened to be based off of the Challenger. Anyway, they took a 1970 Challenger and made it into a 2-seater, gave it a Targa roof and a custom paint color. It hit the show circuit, but it wasn't shown for long as people pointed out that it merely looked like a customized Challenger and not taken too seriously. So it was taken off and back to the drawing board. It was given a much more aggressive front end and renamed the Diamante. However, it didn't get much further than that. Still, the name lived on, and it was revived in 2012 using the SRT8 as its base. It featured a stinger yellow paint job with black trim that included a black stripe highlighting a special-made Yellow Jacket logo on the rear quarters. This package turned out to be a 1-year run with 1,310 units produced, although the Yellow Jacket color remained as an option. For 2013, Dodge introduced the Rally Redline package for the V6 models. Based on the SXT, this package features special trim, wheels, and a performance suspension for the most part. Dodge also added a GPS-based stolen vehicle recovery system known as the Electronic Vehicle Tracking System, or EVTS. Otherwise, everything else remained the same. 2014 saw the addition of the RT Shaker model that introduced the first factory shaker hood since the 1970s. Other than that, everything was merely status quo. Nothing much else to report except the addition of yet another upgrade package for the V6 models called the Super Sport Group. Dodge also introduced the 100th anniversary trim package for the SXT Plus and RT Plus models. This package was to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Dodge brothers introducing their first vehicle to the public. So the Challenger had been out since 2008, and quite frankly, it never really ascribed to being any one kind of vehicle. I mean, at this point, it's not an economy car, not in any respect. It's not a luxury car, even though it can be somewhat luxurious depending on the options chosen. It's not really much of a corner carver. It can handle somewhat, but the GT350 and the Camaro ZL1 will leave it in the dust. And at this point, Dodge really hadn't made any sort of serious effort at any sort of road race car. To be honest, it seemed that the Challenger was merely there. It wasn't particularly bad at anything, but it wasn't that great at anything. It was good at stuff, they looked good, they performed well on the street, but they just didn't stand out, except on the drag strip, and even it wasn't super dominating in that field either. The Challenger was a nice car. It had some sparks of brilliance, but overall, it was lackluster. So when the 2015 model year came out, it seemed like an ordinary, boring production run. But something was different. In fact, many things were different. It's like the Dodge engineers began planning for the 15 model year. They were sick of getting pushed around and decided that it was high time to push back. The first order of business was a facelift. For starters, the front grille was given a pair of inlet snorkels, something reminiscent of the 1971 Challenger. Next, the headlights were addressed. Well, the turn signals to be exact. Before 2015, the front end of the Challenger looked reminiscent of the original cars, but then you'd start the car and what looked like an inboard high beam headlight was actually a yellow turn signal. A huge yellow turn signal. To the point where it was rather off-putting to see these huge yellow turn signals ablaze as the car traveled down the roads. They no doubt took the place of daytime running lights, but they just didn't look right. To remedy that issue, Dodge changed the lights to LED halos that looked tons better and even gave it a more aggressive look. Out back, the tail lights were split into two separate LED lights. The interior was upgraded and given much more functionality. The gauges were revamped with a more retro look, and the dashboard featured a touchscreen display. Under the hood, the Pentastar V6 remained the base engine for the SXT and SXT Plus. Backed by a new 8-speed automatic built by ZF that Chrysler calls the Torque Flight 8, or the 8 HP. This new transmission backs both the V6 and V8 engines. For the RT, the Hemi remained unchanged, save for the addition of an optional shaker hood scoop connected to either a manual or 8 HP transmission. Well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So now, let's talk about the V8 Challenger lineup. First off, you have the RT. That comes with a 5.7-liter Hemi that still makes 375 horsepower made to either a 6-speed manual or an 8-speed 8 HP transmission. The RT Plus is merely an RT with an appearance package, but there is also an RT shaker that was available. Next up is the new model to the lineup, the RT Scat Pack. The Scat Pack name is yet another throwback to the heyday of muscle cars. This new setup begins life as an RT-equipped Challenger with a 6.4-liter 392 Hemi swapped in place of the 5.7. The 392 itself received a power boost of 15 horsepower, bringing the grand total up to 485, so that's already a significant power boost over the standard RT. In addition to the engine, the suspension upgrade is Dodge's sport suspension setup that features Bilstein shocks at all four corners. For stopping power, the 2-piston sliding caliper brakes were upgraded to 4-piston Brembo calipers and 14-inch rotors. The exhaust note is greatly improved with the 2-mode active exhaust system. Still not enough? Well, the next level package is the SRT 392, formerly known as the SRT 8. Like the RT Scat Pack, the SRT 392 was also powered by the 6.4-liter 485 horsepower Hemi. However, the SRT 392 features pretty much everything the RT Scat Pack has, except with an active suspension system in place of the merely upgraded sport suspension, and upgraded 15.4-inch front disc brakes with 4-piston calipers and 13.8-inch rear disc brakes. The wheels are also different, upgraded to 20x9 over the 20x8s. Tires grew from a width of 245mm to 275mm at all four corners. As far as the handling goes, it wasn't bad. Not great, but either suspension setup offered copious amounts of grips in the corners. A far cry from a road course star, but it would definitely be a handful of fun. Now, to be honest, Dodge could have stopped right there. But Dodge has a way of producing some of the most in-your-face, out-of-the-box, subtlety-be-damned cars on the planet. And frankly, they must have realized that they've been playing it safe ever since the Challenger's introduction in 2008. They probably said to themselves, look, we made Charger Daytonas, one of the most recognized cars ever. We built the 426 Hemi, the most iconic engine ever made. We also made the Viper, the American sports car that struck fear in the hearts of every European sports car across the Atlantic. And we didn't do it by playing it safe. So I'm sure afterwards, they all gave each other high fives or something like that, smacked each other or whatever, and then proceeded to design and build the Challenger that made the point car world stand up and take notice, the SRT Hellcat. Let me start by saying this isn't merely an SRT 92 with a blower. Named after the Grumman F-6F Hellcat fighter plane in World War II, this car was built with one purpose in mind: terrorize the competition. And that's exactly what it did. For the heart of the Hellcat, Dodge took an all-new engine block with improved water jackets for improved cooling. It used the 4.09-inch bore of the Apache 6.4 Hemi, but de-stroked it by using a forged steel crankshaft made to 5.7 Hemi specs. The new forged pistons with thicker tops and strengthened connecting rods, giving it a final displacement of 6.2 liters. The idea to de-stroke the engine came about in order to strengthen up the bottom end so that it could perform at high levels continuously day in and day out and remain completely reliable. New cylinder heads were designed that were dimensionally the same as the 6.4, but were strengthened using a proprietary alloy blend. The new changes included hollow sodium-filled exhaust valves, a new camshaft, a new damper capable of withstanding up to 13,000 RPM. The compression ratio was also reduced from 10.9 to 1 to 9.5 to 1. The new 6.2 was topped off with a 2.4-liter twin-screw blower, complete with 4 intercoolers to keep the intake charge below 140 degrees at all times. The end result is 707 horsepower at 6,000 RPM and 650 pound-feet of torque at 4,000 RPM. However, Dodge engineers say that the power output is closer to 800. Either way, in 2015, the Hellcat engine was the most powerful engine ever produced in a muscle car and was the 5th most powerful engine produced in the world. The rest of the car was equally as brutish. The choice of transmission was either a 6-speed manual or the new 8 HP automatic. The Hellcat featured a redesigned front fascia with a front splitter and larger openings for more air through the front of the car. The inboard lights up front were modified. Well, the left front to be exact. While it retains the halo, the center of the driver's side light was opened up and made into an air intake to help feed cold air directly to the air inlet to feed all 707 horses. It's affectionately referred to as an air grabber. The hood was also revised with air extractors to complement the single intake in the center. The rear spoiler was made a little larger to improve the aggressive look and to provide a little more downforce. The wheels were also made a half-inch wider at 20 by 9.5, and Pirelli P0 Neros were used instead of Goodyear F1 Supercar tires, sized at 275s at all 4 corners. The Hellcat uses the same diameter brakes as a Scat Pack, but with upgraded 6-piston calipers up front. The engine breathes through 2.75 inches of pipe with an active exhaust. The Hellcat came with 2 keys, a black key that limited the power output to 500 horsepower, and for the kill, the red key that unleashed all 707 horses to the rear tires. Also, each Hellcat came with the Hellcat logo placed on each fender, as well as inconspicuously placed inside of the air grabber intake. With the release of the Hellcat, the Challenger's reputation changed instantly. It was no longer the kid that got picked last. It was getting picked first. It was the new leader of the pack, with muscle car good looks and a bad attitude to back it up. The exhaust node was wicked, and it could smoke the tires at will. The Challenger Hellcat was pure evil, and America loved it. How's that for a lineup? With all the commotion caused by the long-anticipated Hellcat, Dodge took a break and made very few changes for the 2016 model year. Dodge did, however, make an announcement that they were working on an even more powerful Hellcat for the 2017 model year and to stay tuned. They did do one other thing for 2016. and that was to bring back the drag pack. The last time Dodge offered a drag pack option for the Challenger was 2011, and since then, Chevrolet has offered their Copa Camaro in 2010, and Ford's been pretty consistent with their Cobra Jet since 2008. The last drag pack Challenger that was offered in 2011 came with a 600 horsepower V10. For 2016, Dodge offered two engine options, a 5.8-liter supercharged Gen 3 engine or a Gen 3 426 Hemi. Chevy had a similar package with their Copa Camaro, offering a 5.7-liter and a 427 late model LS engine. Dodge fans liked the nod to nostalgia with the 426, but it was the 5.8 that was the star of the show. The drag pack wasn't a trailer queen either, as the supercharged 5.8 could lay down consistent 8-second quarter-mile times. The base price for the 426 drag pack was $99,426, while the supercharged 5.8 went for $109,354. A quick tidbit of info, the last three digits of the prices reflect the engine size in cubic inches. For the 2017 model year, Dodge introduced two models. The first model was the Challenger GT. The GT, powered by the 3.6-liter Pentastar V6, was mated to an 8 HP transmission and featured an all-wheel drive system derived from the Charger Pursuit package. The control system could transition between rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive as driving conditions require, but will stay in all-wheel drive setup while in sport mode. Also, Dodge decided to reintroduce the TA Challenger. As we stated earlier in this video, Dodge came out with the TA Challenger back in 1970 to make it legal for Trans Am racing, but that was 1970. Here in 2017, Dodge was looking to revive the name and compete against the likes of the Camaro SS and Mustang GT. Think of it as an RT or RT Scat Pack, but with the vintage styling that gives a nod to the 70 Challenger Trans Am car. The outside featured cues from the original TA, like the classic TA side stripe, front spoiler, rear spoiler, hood pins, and hood scoop that's more reminiscent of the 70 AAR Cuda, rather than a snorkel scoop that came with the original TA. All of the top surfaces were covered in semi-gloss black. Every TA comes standard with a 375 horsepower 5.7-liter Hemi, with the 485 horsepower 6.4 Hemi being optional. For extra air intake, Dodge took their driver's side air grabber intake scoop and opened the passenger side to match, with the insides featuring the TA logo. The interior features houndstooth seats with custom TA logos. The 5.7 TA has pretty much all of the underpinnings of an RT, except for the Super Track Pack suspension package, while the 6.4 TA benefits from the Super Track Pack of the Scat Pack with the 6-piston Brembo brakes and 20 by 9.5 wheels from the Hellcat. So in reality, the Challenger TA could be the next step up from the Scat Pack, being just under the Hellcat. Dodge had hinted at a model even faster than the Hellcat for the 2017 model year, but it never came. However, the 2017 Challenger Hellcat itself was unchanged from the previous year. I mean, why mess with a good thing, right? 2018 brought minor changes to the lineup. The most notable change was the addition of the performance handling package offered for the SXT and RT models. This package consists of the Bilstein Performance Suspension, 4-piston Brembo front brakes that come standard in black calipers with optional red calipers at a $500 cost. The package is finished off with 20 by 9 wheels wrapped in 245/45 ZR20 tires and upgraded steering. The popularity of the Hellcat grew exponentially since its introduction in 2015 and has remained virtually unchanged. However, Dodge decided to step things up a bit with a new wide body design for 2018. This new option boasts a set of pretty menacing looking fender flares that add 3.5 inches to the overall width of the car. Tucked up under the wheel wells are massive 20 by 11 inch Devil's Rim wheels that feature a split 5-spoke design that, believe it or not, resemble coffins. The new look is finished off with 305/35 ZR20 Pirelli P0 performance tires that offer a significant increase in grip, resulting in a 2-second per lap advantage over the standard Hellcat on Dodge's test track. Under the hood lies the same 707 horsepower power plant that has performed so well since 2015. While the Challenger lineup was showing itself to be a solid selling pony car, Dodge was looking at more. Much more. In fact, crazy ludicrous more. Just how crazy ludicrous was Dodge planning to get? Well, before we get into that, let's take a look back to the 4th generation Dodge Dart. That's right, the Dart. Built from 1967 and 1976, the Dart was one of the last true muscle cars to succumb to the gas crunch of the mid-70s. In 1970, the bread and butter option was a swinger given to all two-door hardtops. The performance model was the Dart Swinger 340. In 1971, Dodge acquired a new model from Plymouth, the Duster. Dodge restyled the front end to resemble the Dart, and that became their new two-door performance model, while the standard Swinger retained the 1970s styling. Dodge decided to give the new model a new name and came up with the name Beaver, which didn't work well with focus groups, for obvious reasons. Ford learned the hard way with the 1958 Edsel how painful it was when the automotive press likened the front grille to female genitalia. Imagine what would happen if Dodge sold a car that would also be nicknamed. Thus, they renamed the car the Dart Demon, which was a much better choice anyway. We always want our performance cars to have some sort of attitude, and well, the name Demon has plenty of it. The Dart Demon ran from 1971 to 73, where it was renamed the Dart Sport due to Christian groups being somewhat leery of Dodge's naming choice. Dodge revived the Demon name in 2007 in the form of a concept car that made its debut at the 2007 Geneva Auto Show, and nobody really cares about this car because it went nowhere. 2016 was when people started seeing spy shots of the new Challenger model that sported something called the American Drag Racer, or ADR package. It looked like an SRT Hellcat widebody, but with even wider tires. It was rumored to be even faster than a Hellcat, and it certainly looked the part. Shortly thereafter, the ADR name was dropped in favor of the SRT Demon. While the Dart Demon was merely a street car with a Dodge LA small block, Dodge went with a completely different approach. First of all, the Demon name was applied to a Challenger, not a Dart. Second of all, Dodge wanted two things from the Demon: 9-second quarter-mile times and to lift the front wheels during launch. Two things that have never been achieved for the production car. Beginning with the Challenger Hellcat, Dodge tuned the suspension to make it more drag racer friendly. They changed the springs and shocks to allow as much weight to transfer to the rear as quickly as possible. The car rides on 18-inch wheels wrapped in 3 15mm wide rubber at all four corners with optional skinny front runners for drag strip duty. The body was given fender flares to cover the massive meats and gave it a wicked aggressive look by exchanging some of the front suspension components for lightened units and removing a ton of the creature comforts, including the rear and passenger seats. The Demon is built to order and offers the passengers and rear seats as an option for $1 a piece. As far as the power goes, Dodge took the 6.2-liter Hellcat engine and made it stronger with a beefed-up rotating assembly to handle the extra power. The cylinder heads remained the same with a new crankshaft specific to the Demon. On top, the 2.4-liter blower was replaced with a larger unit, displacing 2.7 liters. Boost pressure was raised from 11 psi to 14.5. With the compression ratio remaining at 9.5 to 1, the new Demon engine produces 808 horsepower and 717 pound-feet of torque on 91-octane pump gas, and will belt out a massive 840 horsepower and 770 pound-feet of torque when running on racing fuel. The end result was beyond anything ever produced by, well, anyone. Whereas the SRT Hellcat was the 6th most powerful production car in the world, the Demon was the 4th. When that power is transferred to the pavement, 60 miles an hour comes up in a mere 2.3 seconds. 100 miles an hour follows shortly at the 5.1 second mark, and the quarter mile is ripped off in a mind-boggling 9.65 seconds at a blistering 140 miles an hour, making it the fastest production car in the world. And yes, it can lift the front wheels during launch. All of this for the base price of $86,090. In addition to the Demon package, each new Demon buyer receives a delivery of the Demon Crate. Basically everything that's needed to make this borderline street car into a full tilt drag car. The crate consisted of direct connection powertrain control module, low restriction air filter, high octane racing fuel switch bank, personalized and serialized carbon fiber instrument panel badge, passenger side exterior door mirror delete package, lightweight hydraulic floor jack with the Demon logo, torque wrench with associated sockets, tire pressure gauge, impact wrench cordless and rechargeable, fender cover, and tool bag, all of which came with the Demon logo, a Demon track pack system, and a personalized and serialized badge with a Demon logo. The Dodge Demon was a complete American badass. Where all other pretenders were precision tools, the Demon was a blunt instrument. A marvelous, violent, massive blunt instrument. And it was loud, in your face, and wonderful. Was it banned by the NHRA? Yes and no. It's true that the Demon running at full power, top speed, and stock form will not be legal on NHRA drag strips because the NHRA requires all cars that run faster than a 9.99 second quarter mile to have a full roll cage, which the Demon does not have. It has a roll bar, and it runs a 9.65 quarter. And no, as in the NHRA did not go to Dodge and declare that the Demon is officially banned from the drag strips. If it came from the factory with an NHRA legal roll cage, there'd be no problem. But what an advertising campaign, right? The Dodge Demon showed the world not only what the Challenger was capable of, but also that the 10-year-old platform wasn't finished yet. And there's plenty more to come. For 2019, Dodge continued with improvements for the Challenger. The SXT and GT models both received the option of all-wheel drive. The SXT remained more of a base model, while GTs received an upgraded, more aggressive look with the addition of a performance hood, front splitter, and a performance suspension. The RT Scat Pack now uses the single scoop used in the 2018 and earlier Hellcat, can have the rear seat deleted at the cost of $1, and a new Performance Plus package that takes the performance handling group that was introduced in 2018 and bumps it up with the addition of 20 by 9.5 wheels and 275 40ZR20 P0 tires with a limited slip differential. The Demon being a one-year-only car was a tough act to follow, but on the flip side, it could only appeal to a narrow audience. It was built to do one thing and one thing only: go fast in a straight line. And it did it better than any other car built in 2018. But for 2019, with the SRT Hellcat, which was still in production, seemed boring in the wake of the Demon. Dodge was going to make sure that the SRT Hellcat would never be boring. So, Dodge improved on the Hellcat by offering a new dual snorkel hood and increased airflow to the engine, which led to an increase in horsepower, bumping the numbers up to 717 horsepower and 656 pound-feet of torque. Power was still channeled through either a 6-speed manual or the 8 HP automatic transmission. All of that for $5,500 cheaper. However, with all the excitement caused by the Demon from 2018, Dodge just couldn't leave us with a 10 horsepower increase for the Hellcat. I mean, they've been feeding us a steady diet of high horsepower pavement pounders that have been ripping up the asphalt all over the country. Why stop now? Dodge must have been thinking the same thing because they couldn't be satisfied with a mere 717 horsepower. Don't get me wrong, 717 horsepower is a hell of a lot of power, and most could be very satisfied with such offerings. But there were some who wanted a Demon, but for whatever reason missed the boat. What kind of option is available for the junkiest of horsepower junkies? Well, look no further. For 2019, alongside the SRT Hellcat, there's the SRT Hellcat Red Eye. That's right, boys and girls, Dodge could not let the Demon go away completely, so they took the craziness of the Hellcat and made it absolutely insane by taking the Demon engine and dropping it under the hood, 2.7 liter blower and all. The end result was a package that produced 797 horsepower and 707 pound-feet of torque. Other upgrades include a beefed up 8 HP transmission, track-tuned suspension, and additional coolers for the engine and blower. The Hellcat Red Eye is the ultimate in challengers. It's rowdy, it's loud, it's fast, and a handful for anything out there on the streets currently. If all of that's not enough, any Scat Pack, SRT Hellcat, and SRT Hellcat Red Eye can be had with an optional wide body package. That included fender flares, 6-piston Brembo brakes, adaptive suspension, 20x11 forged aluminum wheels wrapped in massive 305/35 ZR20 P0 Nero rubber. But there's still more. If it's safe to say that Dodge took the engine from the Demon, slapped it in the Hellcat to make the Hellcat Red Eye, then we can say that Dodge took the rest of the Demon suspension, line lock, and option package and added it to an RT Scat Pack to create the Scat Pack 1320. Powered by the naturally aspirated 485 horsepower 6.4 liter Hemi, the Scat Pack 1320 comes with a drag-tuned suspension, including a line lock and trans brake. Passenger and rear seats are optional, and power is transmitted to the ground via 275/40/20 Nexen drag radials. Sorry folks, no Demon Crate is available. For $46,080, you can have a drag racing Challenger that can run 1170s all day. 2020 marks 50 years since the first Challenger rolled off the assembly line in 1970. With that milestone, Dodge is offering a 50th anniversary package. It's a unique trim package offered for all trim levels except the SRT models. For the rest of the line, it's pretty much a carryover from 2019, with one notable exception of the 6-speed manual being made available with all engine packages. However, there is one new model available. Well, not exactly new. Dodge has once again brought back the Drag Pack with a vengeance. Under the hood, a 354 cubic inch supercharged Hemi producing 1,500 horsepower made it to a T400 3-speed automatic transmission. Power is transmitted to a strange 9-inch rear diff that's hung to a 4-link suspension. There's even wheelie bars and a drag chute available because this package is good for high 7-second runs consistently. Couples and Cobra Jets better look out. So what's next for the Challenger? There's been talks of a redesign for some time after the 20 model year. Frankly, it's severely overdue for a new platform, so let's hope the Dodge engineers are planning a major redo. But please, don't deviate from where this car has come from. The Challenger is as popular as it is now because of the flavor it brings to the game. Please don't lose that flavor. It's been a long road for the Challenger. It's been through quite a bit of changes, victories, as well as disappointments. In the 1970s, the Challengers came late to the game and couldn't quite find its niche, which resulted in poor sales and ultimate cancellation. The new generation Challenger of 2008 brought innovation, adaptability, and tenacity to the game, but also changed the game through attrition, out-of-the-box creativity, and good old American brute force. While other manufacturers look to excel within the confines of the unspoken rules that mold what we drive, Dodge ignored the rules, carved their own path, and broke the mold to produce some of the fastest, most unique, and most exciting vehicles on the road today. The Challenger broke out of the pony car mold and is now a pure muscle car without question. Thanks to the performance aftermarket, the new Challenger can be made to be insanely fast with very few modifications. This car has such a following that it has literally achieved a cult-like status with loyal followers. The Challenger isn't the best at everything, what car is? But in the arenas the Challenger excels in, like styling, straight line performance, and overall fun factor, in those arenas, it owns completely. The Dodge Challenger is charging ahead, and it's not planning to look back anytime soon. I'm a believer. Don't sleep on the Dodge Challenger. It'll eat your lunch without hesitation.